morning, church. God is good. And all the time. Can you tell the person sitting beside you, it's a blessing to be sitting beside you today. Church, today I want to ask you a question. What wounds do you have? And of those wounds that you have, what are still bleeding? What are still bleeding? Heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. Oh, heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed. For you are the one I pray. You are the one I pray. Yesterday I was with a friend whose uncle died. And during the funeral and the wake, the three siblings, all of them in their middle or late 60s, are still not talking to each other. I don't know if you know that pain, because that is such brokenness. And his uncle told her before he died some months ago that, it is his wish that my friend would reconcile the three. And she said, Father Mario, it is so impossible to do that. So impossible. I have done what I can, and so even at the funeral, the other one walked out. And then I said this. I said, joy is hard to come by when wounds are still bleeding. Peace is hard to come by when wounds are still bleeding. Love, that is tenderness, is hard to come by when wounds are still bleeding. Church, all of us have wounds because such is our humanity. It is part and parcel of our human being, that we get wounded, oftentimes physically, but so many times also here inside our hearts. And some of those wounds we've got when we were babies. Some of those wounds we've got from our parents. Some of those wounds were caused by our friends in school. Sometimes grammar school, sometimes high school. Sometimes those wounds were caused by our best friends, or circle of influence, or circle of love. Sometimes those wounds come from us. The way we like to reject ourselves. And some of those wounds, even though it's so many decades now, are still bleeding. See, church, joy is hard to come by when wounds are still bleeding. I say that today because, again, we have this gospel passage, so many passages in the gospel in which Jesus is surrounded by fakers, doubters, and haters. Sounds familiar, those three words in our life? Fakers, doubters, and haters. Sometimes those are within our own people that we love. Sometimes that's ourselves. And when he is surrounded by these fakers, doubters, and haters, what could you complain about Jesus? He's healing the sick. feeding the poor. He's loving the little ones. What can you complain about him? And yet, he is surrounded by toxicity. Surrounded by toxicity. Church, listen. When I am surrounded by toxicity in my life, when I am in front of a person that is such a complainer for the 9 years that I have been your pastor, or when somebody complains about somebody, or somebody is angry and cannot forgive a family member, or in the confessional, I hear this a lot, the brokenness that we have, the wounds that we have. I don't ask anymore, why are you angry at your brother? Or why are you so mad? Or why are you such a complaining heart? Or why can't you not forgive somebody? Why do you nurture this resentment in your heart? I do not ask that anymore of myself. By the way, I don't ask them those questions. But I ask myself the question, what happened to you? What happened to you? What happened to these Pharisees that all they can do in front of such goodness is to attack him, to vilify him, and to trap him? And they were successful at this, so they can crucify him. But the question also is this: what bleeding wounds do you and I have still today? Because look at what's happening with Jesus at this circumstance of the scriptures. The Pharisees were concerned about the outside. Jesus was not concerned about the outside. He's concerned about the heart. They were concerned about reputation. And Jesus is not concerned about reputation. He's concerned about character. See, church, I have long accepted this fact. You cannot control your reputation. Either people like you or not. Either you like people or not. You cannot control that. And if you try to, and I tried so many times as a teenager and as a new priest, I thought I would lose my mind. Don't waste your energy on that. God is not obsessed with your reputation. God, in Jesus Christ, is obsessed about your character. He's obsessed about how you can love like His Son Jesus. He's obsessed about how you can be as generous as His Son Jesus. He's obsessed about how you can accept people as they are like Jesus. That's His obsession. Because it's all about love. See, church, character, integrity, that is who you are in front of God, is the only thing that you can bring to heaven. Listen to me. The only thing you can bring to heaven is your character. So don't obsess about, how good, your Facebook post is or your Instagram likes. Nobody posts about their bad day. It's all curated. All, may I say, including me, a fake picture or an incomplete picture of that person. And then I told my friend this. I said, we really cannot change people. Let me repeat that. Parents, please hear me. We cannot change people. We cannot even change ourselves. Why are we trying to change our spouse and our children? Changing people is not our vocation nor our calling. Changing people is the vocation and calling of God. Because only God can change us. You know, worship, especially in our liturgical churches just like us, is not mainly about bowing, kneeling, standing, processing, singing, receiving communion, as good as they may be. And they are part of our worship. They are very important. But that is not worship first and foremost. Worship, church, is about receiving the Father's love. Let me repeat that. Worship is about receiving the Father's love. On the cross, in between heaven and earth, Jesus offered his greatest worship to the Father. Just receiving his love, even though he couldn't understand, my God, why have you forsaken me, he said. And there was no answer. But yet, look at that. Stretching his arms upon the heavens, he received the Father's love. Church, when you worship, when you come here Sunday after Sunday, when you are in prayer every day, before you open your mouth, which is also important, receive first and foremost Father's love. Because only the Father's love can stop the bleeding. Only the Father's love can stop the courage that you are giving yourself. And you know what's beautiful? My experience is this. When God stops the bleeding in my heart, he then equips me to be a wounded healer. To be a wounded healer. Parents, grandparents, don't be afraid to show your children and your children's children your wounds. And how God has transformed those wounds into healing wounds. Healing wounds. You know, it's hard for you to believe this. You know, one of my deepest wounds as a teenager is speaking in public. Nope, I'm not going to speak in public. I'm afraid to be always in front of the class. I always want to be the last. I don't raise my hand when the teacher asks me, ask people for answers, in high school, because there is that wound of always questioning myself, of self-esteem, but when God allowed me to receive his Father's love, here I am with my open wounds before you. Can we bow our heads in prayer? And if your loved one is near, please hold their hand. And let's give thanks to our God today for this gift of Eucharist. This gift of his word. For its power to save. For its power to heal. And then I just want you to be aware of the wounds that are still bleeding in your heart right now. Probably those wounds caused by your own family. Probably of an overly critical parent. Of a rejecting grandparent. Probably it's of a sibling and you keep on comparing yourself with that sibling of yours. Probably it's that death-defying look that was given to you by your friends, or a painful divorce, or probably somebody who has died, or probably a guilt or an unforgiveness that you have in your heart, or for that inability of you to forgive yourself, to embrace yourself fully as you are. In whatever way or form, can we just raise all these up to our tender God, who today wants us just to receive His graciousness, His generosity, His goodness, His very all, His love. Give it to Jesus. Ask Him that those wounds stop bleeding. Hear me, O Lord, and I will be healed. Save me, and I will be saved. Oh, heal me, O Lord, and I will be healed.